Today I'm going to talk about impaired driving. So during this speech, I'm going to talk about what is impaired driving, the different forms of impaired driving, the consequences of impaired driving, and some ideas and ways to prevent people from driving impaired. So first off, what is impaired driving? According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, impaired driving is operating a motor vehicle while your ability to safely operate it is impaired by any substance, which decreases mental or motor skills. So everyone has the common belief that impaired driving is just drinking and driving. And though that is one of the main ones, there are still many other forms. And they are just as lethal as drinking and driving. So the different forms, of course, the most popular, the most well-known, is drinking and driving. So that's when you have alcohol and you have a certain amount of alcohol in your blood system and you drive. However, there are laws in place for a certain level. However, I believe any amount of alcohol in your blood is a form of impairment. There's also drugs, so you can have illicit drugs such as marijuana, cocaine, all those listed drugs, but you can also have prescription drugs and even certain over-the-counter medications such as cough syrup and allergy medication, as they can make you sleepy and drowsy. And yeah, so even some over-the-counter medications are not safe to drive, to operate a motor vehicle whilst having them in your system. There's another subcategory that not many people know about. It's lack of sleep. So many people don't consider it to be a form of impairment. However, there's a statistic out that says going 18 hours without sleep is equal to blowing over the limit on a breathalyzer test. So really, it is a major impairment, but people don't realize, and so they just need to be educated about that. And finally, there's also the subcategory of impairment as distracted driving. So that's like using your phone for texting, calling, even listening to the music too loud. Friends can be a distraction. There's also eating, reading, personal hygiene, so like doing your hair, and makeup and such. That is all a form of distracted driving. So distracted driving, we all know what it is, and there's always consequences for people. The person who is driving impaired will get consequences for their actions. However, more times than not, they got off pretty easy, and they affect someone else's life much more drastically than their own. So if a driver is discovered with impaired driving, they'll have their license suspended, they'll receive some fines, insurance price will go up, and they can get potential jail time. Along with that, they can get job loss if they're like a driver, like a truck driver or something, or they need to drive to get to work and they can't do it, or even just having that on their record. And that's a very big inconvenience for them if they need to drive. And also, there's also the death of said person who is impaired. So really, there's a wide range of consequences for the impaired driver. However, unfortunately, it's not always just the impaired driver that faces consequences. Others can be affected by their reckless actions, and these innocents are not to blame, and it's very unfortunate. They can receive injuries, disabilities, or even death by being hit by a vehicle or being a passenger or whatever. So it's not just limited to the impaired driver. Then there is society as a whole that suffers and is affected by impaired driving. So there's the cost of courts, insurance claims, and prison stays, also hospital stays, unemployment. We as taxpayers have to pay for all those things. So really, it's not just affecting the driver or the innocent that got hit. It is also affecting everyone in society. Um, there have been many ideas to stop impaired driving. However, I don't really know if a lot of people want to have stiffer penalties for impaired driving. However, I don't know if that's necessarily a realistic goal or if it'll actually help. Because there's always that one person that thinks they're invincible and thinks that they're above the law and they'll never be caught. And so with that mindset, I think it's always going to be, even if you increase the fines, the amount of time your license is revoked, or even prison stays, I don't think it'll make that big of a difference, as people won't they won't think it'll happen to them. It'll happen to everyone else, but it'll never happen to them. So I believe only society has the power to decrease and potentially stop impaired driving. It'll take a lot of work, and we just have to educate people more and make it seem that driving impaired is completely unacceptable. And only we have that power, and as a younger generation, we need to step it up and realize how bad it is. However, realistically, I don't think impaired driving will ever be completely gone from our society. I believe we can decrease it and make it less frequent, but I do not believe that it'll ever completely stop. So I just have some interesting stats from Mad Canada. So 4 out of every 10 vehicle-related deaths are caused by impairment, so they're very preventable. All those deaths are preventable. So it's kind of weird to think, oh, we could prevent it, but we're not really doing anything about it, and we're not really thinking. And also, Mad Canada estimates that 4 impaired-related deaths per day. So that's a lot. And so we have a lot of work to do to attempt to decrease the frequency and the acceptability, I suppose, of impaired driving, and we need to make it seem unacceptable and just out of the question for our younger generation. Thank you.